Hello, dear chess lovers. Today, I want to talk about the opening preparation and the role of the engines while doing that. Fabiano Caruana has mentioned some months ago that the best way of prepping in the opening is to intentionally go for those lines that the engine is giving an advantage to the opponent, but in practical human terms, it's easier to play for your side. That's a very smart insight, I think, that has connections between engine chess and how humans play this game. And what are those smart ways to maybe trick our opponents to blindly go for those lines that are approved by the engine, but humanly it becomes difficult to play. I will show you a Catalan example today with the black pieces to prove my point, and we will discuss what kind of psychological factors are playing role in those opening systems, in those middle games when we are making our decisions. Also, very importantly here is to intentionally get your opponent outside of their comfort zone. That's a very important tool also when you're prepping your openings. Let's say your opponent is a Catalan player with the white pieces. He wants those, positional grinds, those beautiful bishop on g2 versus our bishop on c8. This long-term strategic play is their strength. Then you can smartly choose a system that forcefully takes him away from his comfort zone. And if he blindly follows the engine's recommendations, then he might have to part with their Catalan bishop on g2. That's exactly what I will show you today in today's episode, folks. We sort of how to play against Catalan, which is one of the biggest riddles in chess because Catalan is a very robust and sound and strong opening with white, of course. Many players struggle in finding a good anecdote, an antidote against Catalan, and that's exactly what we'll discuss in today's episode too. This signifies the Catalan opening with white. They immediately place their bishop on this long diagonal, and the bishop on c8 is a bad piece, and that's what white is after, right? This long-term strategic pull on the queen side. We'll take on c4, and then we'll enter this line, which to my mind is very annoying to face with the white pieces. Early a6 and knight c6, black is prepping for the move b5. Rook b8 will be my recommendation here for you folks, because we want to simply go b5, defend our extra pawn, plus we want to place our bishop on this long diagonal to challenge your bishop on g2. That's the ideal setup for black. If black has time, we'll go b5, bishop b7, and we have no problems whatsoever. Yes, we are suffering positionally speaking, but we have an extra pawn for that, and we want to cling onto our extra pawn. And that's definitely a good way to fight against the Catalan opening, folks. And here, if you ask the engine will tell you with the white pieces, the best move is knight fd2. And this is the topic of today's episode, folks, because this knight fd2 move will forcefully bring the game to a ground that Catalan players don't enjoy. First things first, why does a normal move not work for white? Because we will play b5, right? And our knight is not directly hanging. We'll play bishop b7 next, and our extra pawn is very healthy and alive. Okay, that will be good for black. For example, something like this, black solve all of their problems. So that's why after rook b8, a very ambitious move, knight e2 doesn't work. What if a4? Well, we don't care. We still play b5. After takes, our rook is no longer hanging on a8, and our next one is bishop b7, and life is very good for black. You see, so by already choosing the setup as black, you're sort of asking white to show their hand, and the engine will tell us that the best move is knight fd2. Why? Because they are preventing b5 by putting direct pressure on that knight on c6, right? They also want to capture on c4 on the next move, and have a, let's say, good Catalan setup with the central pawn majority and a bad bishop, let's say, right? But here comes our good ideas in the opening. What is a drawback of the move knight fd2? This knight can no longer support the e5 square. That's exactly why the best move for black is to push e5. right? We want to put pressure. If you take my pawn, then my knight is a beautiful beast and will achieve this d3 outpost. Our bishop is alive. Beautiful position for black. So after e5, they cannot take. If they take on c4, then we can take the pawn on d4 twice. And this check is not dangerous for us because of bishop e6. Everything is beautiful. The knight is strong. The bishop will go out and we castle. We have an extra pawn. Beautiful position for black. You see, after e5, you're putting pressure on white. So here again, the engine will tell us if white is going for advantage, they must make this extremely ugly move. Bishop takes c6, guys. No Catalan player wants to see this move. They are parting with their strong light square bishop. Catalan bishop is gone. Their king has become weakened. But now their claim is very simple. They get the pawn back and look at our pawn structure on the queen side. White claim is this. They are giving away their bishop, but they will try to squeeze us on the queen side in the long run. What is our compensation? Our compensation is our active pieces. The bishop also became alive after e5. The bishop pair plus the weak king on g1. That was my point with this video, folks, that practically this middle game becomes easier to play for black. We will put tremendous pressure against the white's king side in this position. Even on the queen side, we have some good play, I will show you. While white needs to find those only moves oftentimes to claim some advantage. And even if white finds all the great moves, black is still very close to equality in all these engine approved main lines. But in your games, club players, practically your opponents won't be able to find all these moves with white pieces. It needs great accuracy. Thus, this setup, this opening is very smart choice for black as well, right? If you ask engine is telling us that white is slightly better here after knight takes c4. But here, black is a very good move. Maybe you know it. Bishop e6. We want to simply develop our pieces, and we are welcoming the queen trade in this position. And many people will be surprised. I mean, are we going to attack the white king? So why are we trading the queens in this position? Well, if white takes on d8, which is a mistake, by the way, after rook takes d8, well, look at our piece activity. That fully compensates for, well, structural considerations. Even down the pawn right now we are, but we'll take the pawn back at some point. Just look at our bishop pair, just look at our beautiful pieces, and please compare those with those sleeping beauties on the queen side. For example, knight d2 comes bishop b4. Developing move, which also puts tremendous pressure on the white queen side. And here we can go h5, h4 to activate our pieces this way. We also have ideas like bishop c3 followed by take on e5. We can always regain the pawn back, right? At the very least, we have the bishop pair and we get the pawn back, and this position is completely fine for black. Our bishop pair fully compensates for the structural issues, plus this pawn is under attack, and we have a very good game. Also look at our rook, right? So that's the first point. After knight takes c4, bishop e6, we are welcoming the queen trade. That's a good sign for black. It shows we have a very healthy structure because of our piece activity, right? That fully compensates for those double pawns, which is of course appreciated by the engine. But come play this position with white pieces in a human game. Knight d2, that's why it's their only attempt to claim an advantage. But here, black also has so many good choices, folks. Maybe you can stop the video here and try to identify some good-looking ideas for black in this position. Well, I'm seeing two very positive plans for black. The first one is very brute force, h5, h4, activation, go for an attack against the king, which is lacking the main defender, the Catalan bishop on g2. Or you can go for the other main line, bishop b4. We'll also come back and analyze this move later. Okay, that's also a very nice move, developing move with tempo on those knights. Both of these knights are now sort of semi-hanging, and we sort of activate all of our pieces. We can even go h5, h4 later. Our king is very safe on f8 or e8, and we take it from there. Okay, so let's say we look at the move h5 first in this case, right? That's a very ambitious move. In fact, right now white needs to find the only move, f3, to claim some advantage. And this is also what Caruana says, right? Your opponents are unlikely. I'm not talking about super grandmaster levels, but your opponents are unlikely to find these only moves to claim an edge in your practical game. So that's why it's a very smart choice for black, this setup. Okay, well, Again, black has two very good moves against move f3. By the way, if white goes h3 here, that's a mistake because it allows h4 and we sacrifice the knight, takes back, and our rook is becoming a beautiful piece. Bishop d5, queen d5s are there. This king is not feeling any secure, and comes the next move, guys. Maybe you can see it. Queen d3. That's a very typical and recurrent tactical pattern in this setup for black. The queen actually achieves beautiful square on d3, puts pressure here, plus queen h7 is one of those ideas. Folks, look at the geometry of these things. Queen h7 and our queen will coordinate with our rook, and that king is not feeling any safe. Bishop d5 is coming now. They have to play e4. We can get the piece back after this check first. I mean, look at the king, right? This looks terribly weak. After takes, black is completely fine after bishop d4. In fact, it's black who is having a slight advantage, because if you look at white pawn structure, it's also quite terrible. Black is down a pawn, but who cares? Look at our pieces. Piece activity is more important than material in chess, and this position shows us nicely. And trust me, folks, no Catalan player would like to go for this line with white. They hate to get a position like this, right? We are taking them from their comfort zone. That's exactly why f3 is the only attempt for white in this position. But even here, we have two exciting choices as black, and that's a very good sign when you have so many choices that can put pressure on the opponent. The first one is just h4, rook b4. Let's look at rook b4 first, right? Rook b4, going for a counterattack against this knight. This is also a very recurrent theme in this opening, folks, this rook b4 idea. If they take, we can take on c4, and we can even enter this endgame, which is totally fine for black. Rook takes g4, and the future is not so terrible for black because we actually defend our pawn like that, and these pawns are also weak. We have full equality in this position, equal number of pawns. Their pawns are also quite bad and weak, right? So at the very least, even if white finds all these moves, rook b4 gives us an okay position. But if you want to go for more and go for tricks, then we can also go for this beautiful line h4. That's a piece sacrifice, but we want to activate our pieces. Just look at this. Queen d3 is one idea. Bishop d5 is coming. Bishop c5s are there. Bishop b4s maybe. Queen d3, queen d5s. I mean, there are so many ideas. Again, the only move for white, they have to find its only move to survive, is queen f3. Just, you get my point, folks, right? So far, I'm just giving you a line that your opponents will have a high chance of going wrong at some point. Even if they find all the right moves, you're completely fine in all these main lines. For example, here queen d3 is one try. If they go b3 to defend their knight, then you can do this check. They have to find the only move, king h1. And after rook d8, again, we are putting so much pressure on the white's position. Our f7 square is completely safe. White cannot do anything to our king. And after, let's say, bishop b2, we can go for the bishop b4 idea again to put maximum pressure on that knight. Again, this pawn can be hit further with rook h4. I'm just giving you all the themes, right? This recurrent setups and ideas that we are keeping the momentum by attacking everything. We are taking away from their comfort zone. If white finds all these moves, white may claim an edge, but that's a disgusting engine line, and that's a very low chance that white will find all these moves in actual games, right? So that's exactly why h4 is objectively not as strong as rook b4, let's say, but I would say you can still go for that in your practical games and try at least, right? Even in this position, there are moves like queen d3, by the way, folks. You know, just talking about choices. And here, if they take on g4, we can take on c4, right? It's just a very, very ugly looking position for white. Again, if white takes on h5, it looks ugly. White engine tells us that white is slightly better, but go prove this in an actual game. And that's when we are talking about the practical side of chess. To my mind, as a Catalan player myself, I never like to see those structures as white, and I know from first-hand experience that that's a good practical choice for black. If the engine favors white, that's even better, I would say, for you, because your opponents might blindly enter those lines. That will end up in a very, very bad position, okay? Going back to this knight d2 moment, folks, as I told you, we had this choice of h5, but we can also make the very logical move bishop b4, developing move, while also putting pressure on that knight. Both of these knights are now attacked by our pieces, and white needs to find very, very careful moves to slowly maybe consolidate their position. b3 looks nice, but it allows h5 and h4 is coming. White has to be so careful. For example, if white goes wrong with a very natural move, queen c2, we go h4, and here white must find the only move to survive in this position. And that's the move knight f3, folks. Otherwise, the game will be over instantly. Even here, it's fine for us. We have so many ideas like queen d7, for example. And after, let's say, h4, rook d8, our pieces are gaining great activity on the only open file. Look at the white pawns. They're quite weak. And we basically say, you know what? You might have an extra pawn, but who cares about that? Because piece activity is more important. We can even go for a queen trade here, folks. That's just shows us the healthy structure for black. Because of our good pieces, we can even, let's say, afford the queen trade with the pawn down and still get an okay position in this case with our bishop pair, with our good pieces. Okay? So going back to this moment of bishop b4, b3, h5, h3. That's, let's say, a main line in this position, this move h3. But this also allows us to make the move bishop c3. That's a very, very common theme in those positions. This way, we're going to save our knight on e5. Well, we can always take on e5, of course. That was a good move. But we can go for more. And we can do this queen d3 move. And now, please, folks, stop the video and just ask yourself whether white should take on g4 in this position. And here I'm talking about the beautiful attacking motifs in this video. Well, h takes g4 is a big mistake because after hg, you see what's coming, guys, right? The rook has become a very happy piece. And can you see the point of queen d3? How can we combine this move with the move queen d3? For example, after bishop b2, what is the best move for black? You're a great player, folks. If you found the move queen h7, and white is totally helpless against two different checkmate and one threats, and we are winning the game directly. You see, a single slip and the entire thing collapses. Queen d3 puts pressure here, puts pressure there, puts pressure here. Tremendous activity for the black pieces. And look at the white pieces, right? No Catalan player would like to enter this position voluntarily, despite the engine might like them at the beginning, right? And a single slip and the game is over. Again, showing the psychological side of things, practical difficulties, human difficulties. I believe in the value of this opening, guys, and I'm pretty sure you will enjoy playing this with the black pieces. As I said, there are many lines we can throw at white. This was only the two lines we looked at so far, but you see how venomous the entire thing is for white. A single slip and the game is over. So this was a multi-purpose video that I both show you a nice setup with black against the Catalan that gives you practical chances, attacking chances, get your opponent outside their comfort zone, but also, right, just shows us this complexity of the opening preparation in our modern times using engines. Engines have changed the opening preparation completely. Now they are telling us, for example, that so many different openings are playable, objective. They found ways to survive. So for human side, what becomes important is to find those lines that are objectively or maybe practically easier to play as a human. This, regardless of the objective evaluation by the engine, we have to find those positions that are easier to play for us, or at least we understand the plans better than the opponent, so that we can actually find those moves in those jungles. We can take them away from their comfort zone. We can push them to a corner that only a single move gives them equality. And this way of preparing for the openings are becoming very, very important, even for top players. As Caruana said, remember, he says the best, the smartest way of prepping is to voluntarily enter those lines that the engine is favoring the opponent, but you know, as you did your homework, that it will be easier to play for your side, to find those moves, to put pressure in a practical game to the opponent, that only a single slip can cost them the game. Please tell me what you're thinking about this idea, and please tell me whether you actually tried this setup as black against the Catalan. What were your opponents doing? Did they also find all these mainline moves like knight fd2 in this position, right? Or were they maybe not even entering those lines, suspecting that something bad is going to come at them after moves like e5, for example, right? To my mind, a real Catalan player would not play the move bishop c6. Maybe they could find some other resources later on, or maybe even here. But if they really blindly follow the engine line, then this is what the engine is telling us that white should play, right? But practically, it becomes difficult, especially for club players, to find all these only moves to survive in this jungle of complexity. And as long as you do your middle game work, you look at those typical ideas, tactical ideas, positional ideas for black, then you can outplay many white players from this position despite the engine favoring them from this position. Please give me feedback and please give me a like and subscribe if you like this video, folks. And I'm here to help you, support you in your journey. And please don't hesitate writing to me on YouTube. I am responding to each and every comment of yours. Writing your ideas is also good for learning because you will consolidate the lessons today. You can even write me a summary of the main lessons from this example and I will give you feedback. And please give me like, as I said, because that's very important for me to be able to produce similar content for you. I noticed that only 50% of the views are coming from my subscribers. Please click on that subscribe button, folks. That's very important for me to be able to produce similar content for you. Thank you so much, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.